I really don't know why I agreed to do this. I mean, why put myself through it? I guess the answer is that my misery is at least mildly entertaining, and that's why I'm going to be spending all of today repeatedly driving around the worst corners in sim racing as determined by you guys. Well, some of you anyway. Is this the worst corner in sim racing? Or maybe it's this. They're certainly about as popular as the tarmac runoff that surrounds them, or fashion tips from F1 drivers with more than 90 race wins. But neither of these corners made the list, which I'll admit was hastily thrown together from responses on Twitter and Discord, so they're probably about as representative as, well, any other poll you may have seen this week. And with that all out of the way, let's just dive straight into the effluent-filled pool of corners that really should never have made it off the back of the napkin on which they were hastily scrawled. You knew this one was going to be here, so let's just tackle it first. The Retificio Chicane, the bane of sim racers since there was such a thing, and perhaps the most popular spot for sim racers to get out and mingle. You'd think online racing could be a lonely, isolating experience, but there's no denying that Retificio brings people together. And that's pretty much the reason so many of you chose this otherwise unremarkable chicane. But there is perhaps a little bit more to the discussion than Retificio's uncanny ability to ruin everyone's weekend. First up, there's the small matter that this malignant little double 90-degree chicane is carelessly plonked in the middle of one of the fastest sections of one of the fastest road circuits in the world, which is somewhat akin to inviting, well, me to a gathering of normal, regular, outside people. It just ruins the fun. But beyond that, it bunches cars together, compressing them into a narrow switchback format, which in real life is a bit of a recipe for disaster, but in sim racing, where the consequences of an accident range from being minorly inconvenienced to being slightly less minorly inconvenienced, well, you know how it ends. It is said that whenever a man does a thoroughly stupid thing, it's always for the noblest motives. I think the final chicane at the circuit to Barcelona, Catalonia fits that rather well. Yes, it's another annoying pair of 90-degree corners intimately placed back to form a chicane designed to slow cars down, and that's about as warmly welcome as my neighbour was listening to 90s bangers while defrosting his car this morning. It's 5:30, dude, and I can assure you that Backstreet is in fact not back. It never was back, and it's bloody well not coming back. But I digress. It's not so much that the corner itself is liquid garbage, which, well, it is rather runny. No, it's that it replaced something so much better. Sacrificing a fantastic corner in the hope that it might improve overtaking is a head over heart thing. But what I think they might have forgotten with these changes is that you need both the head and the heart to survive. Changing the penultimate corner at Barcelona is a lot like putting arms on a kestrel. Yes, now it can play Time Crisis, but it sort of loses sight of what was great about it in the first place. Let's close out Barcelona with this final thought. The other corner produced this, one of the greatest moments in motorsport history. The chicane? Well, I can't think of anything memorable that's happened there. Okay, so really this is three corners, but it's my video and I'll complain about whatever I please. But actually, it turns out you guys couldn't settle on which of the corners that form the Mercedes arena was the most, not good. Maybe it's this endless left-hander. Or maybe it's the endless left-hander that follows it. Or the final part, where the curb is too steep to use and the runoff exists as an illustration of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics as relating to track limits. Which is to say, you're seemingly both within and outside the track limit until the sim, steward, or in box cat decides your fate. But that makes it all sound very dramatic, and the opposite is totally the problem. The arena is slow, plodding, and it completely sucks the drama out of any race. That's why I picked 90s DTM cars for this section. On a normal circuit, half of the cars would look like tinfoil cubist sculptures by turn 5, but this is all too meandering for that. You need a bit of speed to be able to facelift a 90s Executive Tourer using your mate's 90s Executive Tourer. This, though, really doesn't allow for that. As I said, it's meandering. It's not a race circuit, it's a pleasant trip out on the river. Moving over to ACC now, and Paul Ricard was a popular, or really unpopular choice. In fact, many responses just name the circuit in its entirety rather than one specific corner. But those are the actions of weak-willed cowards. Thankfully, plenty of you were willing to leap off of the fence and point your collective fingers at the final corner, Virage du Pont. So let's look at why that might be. Well, first of all, it suffers from the same issues that are prevalent throughout the rest of the circuit. The glass-flat tarmac expanse makes gaining sightlines a real challenge. The runoff is tarmac too, and then of course there's those seizure-inducing stripes. But I think there are two things that make Virage du Pont worse than many of the other corners in this fairly unpopular venue, and on this list in fact. First of these is that, well, it's just a clumsy, slow corner. But it's a clumsy, slow corner that comes after another awkward corner that on its own wouldn't be so bad, save for the fact that you have to sacrifice your exit for Virage du Pont. So not only is it a stinker of a corner on its own, but it taints another perfectly average corner with its malicious, creeping odour. Last one then, and it's another one of those, yeah, can't you just put the whole circuit down affairs? And well, I wasn't really willing to do that, but as it turns out, the Three Chicanes are what raises sim racers' collective ire. And that's not really all that surprising, because most of this video, well, it's been about chicanes. To be fair to Zolder though, when it comes to chicanes, this place is world leading. Over half of the circuit is a chicane, well, depending on how you want to count the corners, and as you would expect for a place with such a passion for the art of turning one way, then turning the other, and occasionally turning the first way again, these are all special in their own regard. The first chicane looks as though it may have come about as the result of a misalignment in the slot car tracks that they clearly used to plan the circuit. However it came about, its use as a testbed for suspension setup cannot be underestimated, since the apex curbs are frankly ludicrous. In fact, it's rather like hitting a parked Lotus Esprit. Moving on from the home of the Belgian space program to the second chicane, named for one of the greatest drivers of all time. Let's not go into all of that here, other than to say the name and the man that carried it were and are significantly more popular than the corners that now bear that name. Having used all of the concrete in Belgium for the first chicane, the curbs at Villeneuve are wide and flat, which, depending on the sim, can get you playing track limits bingo. Add in the normal, slow and awkward nature of, well, every chicane ever, the ill-conceived blind corner approaching the braking zone, and our good old friend the sausage, and you've got another set of miserable corners. Now the final chicane really isn't so bad. Unlike pretty much every other chicane on this list, they've branched out and varied the radius of each of the turns, which sounds really boring, but it's surprisingly uncommon. Think about it, how many chicanes out there are just two 90-degree corners slapped together like the designer had a deeply unsettling fondness for right angles? Again, great for building a Scalextric replica on your bedroom floor as a kid. Less good from a driving perspective. That slot car lobby has clearly become too powerful. So then, that starts to bring things to a close here. I want to thank you is probably the right word, Mike SimRacing604 for publicly peer pressuring me into making this video, though I do have to admit it was actually a lot more fun than I thought it would be. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you could hit the like button or perhaps even subscribe if the mood takes you. And I guess then all that's left to say is goodbye, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.